Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time, mammoth session as indicated by the sea of green up here. Getting late in the day for a coffee and a bit too early for wine, so I tossed a coin. The coffee lost. Mind you, I had to toss the coin 4 times before the coffee lost. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. These were all pulled out during watering this morning, and first off, the reasons. Miltonidium, Peter Comp. It's got right to the edge of its pot, 2 separate pieces, and the new growths are just starting, and I don't want loads of aerial roots hanging over the side of the pot. I want them down in some media. Check me records, and it's actually been in the pot a while. So although it's not due to be repotted officially, I still want it out of the pot and into 2 smaller pots before these new growths push their roots over the side of the pot. So that's the reason this one's coming out. I want them in smaller pots. Now, there's going to be some older roots in here. Whoops, whether it likes it or not, it's coming into 2 pieces, because it is 2 pieces. There's nothing to take off the plant apart from tease out the older media, and still debating whether that is algae or moss. But whatever it is, it's a little unsightly through the clear pots, so it can have a good wash off, and we'll see how we go. I won't bore you with going over this too much, but basically this will get cleaned up under the tap, rinse off the algae. That will get a spray with hydrogen peroxide. That kills the algae with any luck. It doesn't do it any good anyway. A few older dead roots to trim off. Now with a branching root system like this, the most important thing is to get the good roots away from the sheaths off, so that the new growth can push out clean and the roots can go downwards. And the best of the roots around this side of the plant, they're the ones I want in the pot. And if I have to trim some of these roots to get it in the pot, then so be it. So you can go in the sink. I'm going to have to go carefully or I'm going to get the plants muddled up. And this one, again, has got new growth starting. My mouth won't work. That's before I've had the wine. These roots really are hanging on to the media, so you know they've done okay, but some of them are a bit old and tired, so we can trim some of these. Yeah, they're not wanted anymore. Again, try and clean off the algae, or try and kill it off and wash it off, combination of the 2. Get the sheaths off, so there's a little new growth there. I can already see the start of the roots. Yeah, and by doing that, those roots will go downwards, so that's the theory. I will take the sheaths off the older bulbs as well, and on this particular plant I'll take that bulb off. That will still leave it 3 bulbs, all of which have some leaves, even though the oldest one will drop that leaf probably in the next 4 to 6 months, but we do have a new growth and signs of new roots. That's the point to repot. It's vigorous, this plant. Those roots will grow quickly. So even though it's going to get disturbed, we've got cooler temperatures at the moment, it's not going to set it back much, if at all. So that's that one. If I put both of those together and the tag in the sink with them, then as I wash them and get them cleaned up, we can keep the tags with the plants. Some of these haven't got tags, but I know what they are. This has been a rescue plant for probably 2 years plus, and it had Fusarium. A while ago was treated. It's been treated again since, just in case. And this is, I love this plant. I don't want to lose this. It's an Alisara, and it's Sunday Best Pink Skirt, and it was once awarded. Beautiful blooms. I will not lose this plant by hook or by crook. But as you can see, all the new roots are starting under that new growth. The pot is too big, Now it might not look too big at the moment, but as soon as that big bulb comes off it will be. So again, this hasn't been in the pot too long, but you know, it's been in there a while. And it is pushing out new roots like a good one at the moment. So see this old part, there's no live roots here. That bulb has long since served its purpose, so that can come off. I'm going to wait to cut that properly. Again, loads of algae stroke moss. Not sure which it is, but whatever it is, I don't like it. But nonetheless, it's a good root system. You know, in under here are, you know, these roots came down and decided to go round rather than go any further down. So there's a lot of good roots on here, plus extreme care needed around the base of the new growth. These will break as easy as anything. Really, those tips will break off at almost by looking at them. So I've got to be very careful under the tap. But I do need to get a fair bit of this. This is really compacted in here. The roots have just bound it all together. If you get a one like that I call pot bound, I think that's the traditional expression. Quite honestly, the easiest way to unpot bind it, I don't think that's a valid expression, but you know what I mean, is to get it under a tap and flush through, and it just seems to help loosen it. But while it's running under the tap, you still need to watch what you're doing when you've got delicate new root tips like that. Okay, so that's that one. Reason for being repotted, I want to get the older part of the plant off. That bulb definitely, probably that one as well. And that will make it a smaller compact plant, and it can go in a smaller pot. The logic with this smaller pot thing is that I've found that after repotting, if it's in a really small pot crammed in, it produces a brilliant root system pretty quickly, which means probably in 6 months' time, when it does start looking a bit too big for the pot, it can be lifted out, put in a bigger pot without disturbing the roots and without the need to replenish the media because it's still new. Then it'll fill the pot. But I find it easier to fill the small pot with roots first, then put it in a larger pot. I've found that by putting them in a larger pot first, they don't fill the pot with roots, and you tend to lose more older roots as well. Not across the board, but quite often. Now this one is a strange one. The old bulbs go really dark, and you very rarely see a good one of these. It's Bifrenaria, no it's not. I'll put a pop up, but it's Gilded Tower Mystic Maze, and I've seen quite a lot of people with this plant, and I've never seen a good one. The only good ones I've ever seen are the ones for sale. So it seems that you buy it, take it home, and it goes downhill. Oh, I have never worked out why. It produces roots, puts up lovely new growths, which is what it's doing now, which is why I'm grabbing it. You can see it's started to push some new roots out, but it's only just starting, so there's quite a few more to come. And this one has been in the pot a long time, quite a long time. A lot of older dead roots in under here, yeah, they can just come off right back to the base of the plant, leaving the better ones to go in the smallest pot I can cram it in, quite honestly. And I may try and take that large, I may actually leave the older bulbs on that one, on the grounds that this is the one I want to take off, because this one is right next to that new growth. If I try and take that off, I'll disturb the new growth and it might even detach. This one I'd like to get off, but it's right in between two others, and it might just twist off, but I'll work on that. You'll see the result later. So that's that one. No tag on that, but I know what it is because of the dark bulbs at the back. Now this one, the only reason this is coming out of this pot is that since it was repotted in this size pot, it hasn't done too well, and it's got a new growth coming. And you can see that is not a good root system. I made the mistake of watering this one before I made the decision this morning, but we've got the new roots just starting. And And I think that by putting this in a much smaller pot, it's going to do much better. That bulb can come off, it's too low, serving no purpose now. This bulb I'll leave, because although it's a little desiccated, it can still be used as storage. And you can see the progression on this plant. It went from there to the biggest bulb it's ever had, which bloomed. Then it grew this one, smaller, but it bloomed. Then it grew this one, and that bloomed, and now it's growing this one. And I want this one to be bigger than that one, preferably at least that big. If I can get it to that big, I'll be over the moon. So that's that one, and that's, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. This is my namesake. It's not called this anymore, but when I got it, it was Oncidium varicosum, variety Rogersii. Yeah? I didn't get it because it's got my name in it, I got it because the blooms are gorgeous. So that's that one. I won't forget what that one is because the bulbs are desiccated. And this one was discussed this morning. This is one of my Shari babies. Again, was two pieces put in the same pot, and the new growths were right outside touching the pot. And this is a new growth here on this piece. This one round here is a starting to mature new growth, but nowhere near as big as the previous bulbs. And these bulbs don't look too happy, so I want those off. So this is coming out of the pot for several reasons. It's also been in that pot a while, not ridiculously too long. I try to avoid doing that now. It's the best way in the world to lose roots. Leave a plant in a pot too long. Let the media break down and lose your roots. That's just how it goes. If you use inorganic media, you don't get that problem. The only reason to repot in inorganic media is some form of rot in the plant, or it's outgrown its pot, you know, which is a brilliant reason to repot. But I want this in two separate pots. It is two plants. The only reason that wouldn't come apart is not because it was one plant, it was because the roots have tangled. Now, as you can see, I'm not happy with that. That's rotten. And before that rot starts going soggy and forms a bacterial problem, that and that are coming off. And that will leave me with the large strong back bulb that's still leaved, the next one along, and the next one along. So that'll be three bulbs, and somewhere here will be where the new growth comes out next, probably. Although this Shari baby can give you a surprise now and again, and it'll push a new growth out from the base of an old blinking bulb. Just on that one, I don't find many others do that. But we've got some viable roots here. We've also got some older dead ones, but a trim, and certainly get those bulbs off. I need to sterilise my scissors. Cinnamon on the joint. And as I'm cutting the rhizome, we'll have a good look at see if we've got any pretty colours. Hopefully not. And this one, the new growth is already progressing on this one, and yet it hasn't started its new roots just yet. So they're still to come, but they won't be long. As I say, some Oncidiums don't produce their new roots until the bulbs are almost mature. And some of them produce the new roots at exactly the same time as the new growth. So it pays to get to know your plant. But that's the logic as to why they've come out of their pots. So I've got a mammoth cleaning session in the sink now. Yeah, I've got some new root tips in under this bark, so I need to go careful. Right, I shall do the washing in the sink stuff, get them cleaned up. They'll all have a dose of the hydrogen peroxide, because under normal circumstances I've found that it does get rid of the algae. Usually temporarily, because they're still going to go back in clear pots, but it puts it on hold for a while, and it shouldn't start getting too bad again until we get the much more light through the sunshine and things, because that seems to be when they're at their worst through the summer period. So yeah, clean up time. I'll sort out what media I'm going to use. It might not all be the same, and I'll be back shortly. Right, now we'll have a bit of fun. This is for Lynn. If this goes wrong, Lynn, I will find you. I got told off that when using rubbing alcohol, the soaking to sterilise your tools isn't the killing process. The killing process is the rapid drying in the air. So I've always recently taken them out and let them dry in the air. The idea being that evaporation process kills pathogens and anything that happens to be on your tools. Basically, Lynn said if you really want to make sure, set fire to your scissors. So we're going to have a go at setting fire to the scissors. Given that they will be dripping with alcohol, I don't even know if 70% rubbing alcohol even burns. It won't be the alcohol that burns, it will be the fumes that it's giving off. It's like petrol. Petrol doesn't burn, it's the fumes. So we'll see. I haven't done this before, and I thought we'll do it on camera. But if the alcohol does catch fire and drips, I don't want it dripping on the newspaper, so I've put a tray there. So let's see what happens. And if this goes wrong, Lynn, I'll be on the next plane to Australia with the boys. Right, let's see what happens. Don't you drip on me. Ah, it does burn. But as you can see, it's the fumes that are burning, not really the alcohol. But apparently that does the job properly. Now if you do that, obviously these are stainless steel, and those marks will just wipe straight off. But on certain other metals that are used for cheaper scissors, they might go black and stay black. But those are now clean. So a re-sterilizing process for me is now going to be a lot quicker, because I can dunk those back in there, set fire to them and start using them, as long as they're not, no, they're very gently warm, they're not too hot to worry about. And obviously anything else that can catch fire, get it well out of the way. Don't be daft and set fire to your house and your orchid collection, and then all your videos will go missing because you've got nothing to film. Anyway, that's what I was told does the job properly, so that's what we'll do from now on. I'll be back. Right, welcome back. I'm going to do these in bits with breaks in between, because it's getting late in the day, and if I try and do it all at once, we're going to have some language. First job is to, anywhere where I've cut, get the old cinnamon on the joint. Now on this Shari baby there is a very slight tinge of pink, but if I remember rightly, that was there last time I repotted and it was dealt with. I don't expect it to still be on the newer part of the plant, because even if you treat Fusarium, the pink doesn't go away, or the purple, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't go away, it stays there forever. As long as that part of the plant is still there, it's still got the coloration. It doesn't lose its coloration because it's dead, if you see what I mean. So if you've cut the back end of a plant off and found it, it may have progressed further up the plant, but your treatment should have stopped it progressing any further. Now obviously with consecutive repots over the years, gradually the older parts of the plant get cut off. You know, they become leafless bulbs, they might shrivel, but they come off eventually, they don't stay there forever. And at some point, if your treatment has worked, when you cut one of those old bulbs off, you'll go yippee, because there's no pink left, or purple, whatever you want to call it. So that's sealed those wounds. That just stops any rot getting in through the rhizome, especially as it's winter time, lower temperatures, less active growth, and it's getting late in the day now. It's starting to get dark, so we're going to get a bit of a move on. Right, decision making process, plant at a time. That is a 2-bulb plant with a new growth. That's getting crammed in the smallest pot I can get it in. Yep, these are fast decisions. I've got a lot left to do and I don't want to be here all day. I'd like some food sometime. So a little bit of chunky bark in the bottom, just for drainage and to let still allow the air to get in. And any bits that don't look like bark come out while I'm doing it. So that's that. Don't forget, these plants are not going to stay in here very long. Now this is a branching root system that is not thick and chunky. It's not a fine root system, but it's not a thick chunky root system. So that will get, I've got large, medium, small. That's going to get a mixture of medium. Don't forget, I've got a tiny little pot here, and I'm trying to mix media for one pot at a time. It's going to get some small bark, yeah, and it's also going to get some moss. Most Oncidiums would prefer to stay moist. During the winter time, I like to let mine get virtually dry, if not absolutely dry, in between watering, because when I water, the pots stay wet for some time because of the lower temperatures and the fact that their growth is minimal during the winter months. So I don't want soggy pots, but you know, this is getting repotted. We're not far away from our shortest day. Well, what happens after that? The days start getting longer, and eventually the temperatures start coming up. And this is in new media, yeah? So it's in a media that will suit it best when it gets into the growing season. And I don't have to worry about changing it, but if it takes off like a rocket, I may have to put it in a bigger pot. That are good. Right, these may need staking, but the way I pot nowadays, I doubt it. Now, all these bases, including the new growth, are all at roughly the same height. So I don't need to worry about tipping the plant at a funny angle or anything like that to try and get them all in. But the fact that I want this jammed in tight, I'm only putting a bit in at a time, and then poke it down and then put a bit more in. So it gets added a bit at a time. And the reason for that is you are less likely to leave air gaps if you do it a bit at a time, and it allows you to press down quite hard at the beginning of the process. Okay, and as you do that, notice I'm only pressing down around the edge of the pot. I don't press down in the middle. The idea is that by pressing down at the edge, the media moves in, because it's got nowhere else to go basically, and I've got heavy hands. So that's a lump of wood. That's not bark. Tray's description. It says on the packet Orchiata bark. It doesn't say Orchiata wood and bark. Quality assurance on the Orchiata bark is not as good as it used to be, definitely. Now in theory, when I finish compacting this down the edges, which pushes the roots inwards, so it's not damaging the roots, it's just pushing them in towards the middle and then holding them tight. That's a back bulb there. I don't need the media any higher than the base of that back bulb unless I absolutely have to hold the flipping thing steady, which I'm hoping not to have to stake this. You just keep pressing. You'll be amazed how much more media will go in. Now there are some plants I would lightly pot, but this isn't one of them. This is going to get jammed in, and these roots will love it. They will find every little nook and cranny, fill this pot with any luck, and then we can move it on to a bigger one. Yep, I will have to stake that one because it's not firm enough, and I don't think I can get that any firmer. A lot of it depends on how much of a root system it's got, really. One last go. You're going to be steady enough. Yeah, by handling that one carefully now, I can make do. And I'm doing new labels for everything on the grounds that I've got the labels. They were sent to me as a present from Rose, who used to be very active on YouTube but has gone missing. She sent those to me, and the least I can do is use them. So that's one done. Next, now this one's a bigger one, but this one's got far less roots. And it does have one pseudo bulb that's a bit lower than the other two. Now I could take it off, but it's still got a leaf. It's still supporting the plant. Yeah. A lot of these roots started going upwards because of the sheath that was there. It's not a sheath, that's an old flower spike. But nonetheless, we've still got some roots, and we have a new growth just starting with some new roots showing. So that's the bit I want in. Now that might have to go in a slightly larger pot, because it's a slightly bigger plant, but I'm not over potting. These are all the same size. So are those. That's about as large as I did. That's a bit big, but I know it won't go in the next size down that I've got. I think there's one in between, but I haven't got any. So it's going to have to go in that one. I really don't like these pots. They're crystal clear, and that's a bit of wood. Come out. Right, same mix for this one. It's roughly about half and half. This is a bigger pot, so I will need a bit more, given how compressed it's going to be. So it's a mixture of large, medium and small. You have to bear in mind with Orchiata bark, it's very hard, and certainly for the first few years, doesn't matter how hard you press this down, you won't exclude all the air. You'll always have some air in there. There's always room for roots to get through the gaps. So you can press it down as hard as you like, to the point where you're almost crushing the roots, but not quite. And that is far more important with the, believe it or not, it's the other way round. It's more important not to crush the roots when they're large fleshy roots. The thin fine ones just seem to find the gaps and they don't squash. It's the big ones that get squashed easily. Which sounds back to front, but that's how I've found it working in the real world, actually doing it. I'm quite impressed with the new moss, I must admit, because so far I haven't had a thorn go in my finger and draw blood like I have in the past many times. There are thorns in this moss now and again, although this particular pack doesn't seem to have had any yet. As fast as I say that, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to squeeze a bit of this media in a minute and we'll go ouch. Right, now this one, the new growth is minute, so it's yet to be. It's just an embryo at the moment. Get the sheath out of the way. I thought I'd got all of that. I missed a tiny little bit. Now this back bulb's going to end up being a bit low in the pot, but there's a way of dealing with that. The way I work is, if I've got a new growth and only one, I need that as near to the centre of the pot as I can get it, and everything else just gets squashed. So the first thing I do is put the new growth against the pot, which sounds exactly the opposite to what I've said. But that allows me to get the media down behind the plant, then turn it round and push it into that media. Being very, very careful not to break your new growth. Then you can get some media down in front of the place where all of the new roots are going to be. They're not going to be around the back of the plant, that's just dead space really. The only purpose it serves is to hold the plant upright, fingers crossed. This is a larger plant. Didn't have bad roots, this piece. So what I want to do now is make sure I've got some smaller bits with some moss to just go around the area where those new roots are going to come out, and they'll get straight into there and take off like little rockets. But initially I still need to make sure that the plant is squashed in there as hard as I can. Some people will be having kittens at the moment at the pressure that I'm putting on. I found that it works, and I found that with the Oncidium types, if you loosely pot them and they wobble around, they just don't grow good roots. Now the idea now, what I was saying about that pseudo bulb that's a bit sunk, is to just get some larger bits of bark with no moss, just to put round there, just to hold it in place. That's all that is doing. It's not for growing, because it isn't going to grow. There won't be any roots coming out of there, that's for sure. So that takes care of the bulb that's a bit low. Now all I've got to do is make sure that this is in there as firm as I can get it. Ugh. I don't think we're going to get any more in there. It's like I said, you can't squash bark tight enough that there's no air, so you don't need to worry. And then we'll just put some more loose around the top for where those roots are going to come out. Is that one done? Shiny new label. I always find that there are times when I only want to water half the pot. Yeah, it's like if this pot was still quite damp but was starting to dry at the top, I might want to trickle a little bit of water around that new growth, and that would be the only bit. And if I do that, my label's in the flipping way, so I always try and put my labels around the back where there's nothing going on. So that's that one done, and that one's out the way. Break time. I'll be back with the next plant.